Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live Q&A. I'm doing this for the, the 16th time or the 17th time. We took a little bit of a hiatus last week as we got ourselves all set up to do this also on LinkedIn Live. So we're hosting on LinkedIn Live. We're on 3 places on Facebook. We're on YouTube. So wherever you are, we're glad you're here. Welcome. During the course of this next few minutes, I'm going to be answering some questions that have been asked of me in the last few days, really, on a webinar or in some other way, or even a question that was asked here yesterday that we didn't get to. And I'm going to be taking your questions and trying to get whatever you want and you need us to talk about during that time. My name is Kevin Eikenberry. If you don't know, chances are, wherever you are, you can at least see my name there. And you can see my name in this link that's below. I want to share with you quickly what we're doing on Thursday. I'm very excited about, completely free. Wherever you're watching now, you can watch then. Here it is. We're doing a session that is all about folks who are dealing with this situation. They are trying to work. They are trying to be parents. They are trying to be school teachers, and they may be spouses, all at the same time, 24/7. Everyone's in the house, and it's hard. We're calling it juggling the balls that you can't drop. And I've got a couple of guests joining me. We're going to be in all of these same locations, as well as on our website, kevineikenberry.com/live. And it will be on Thursday, the 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Man, I hope that you'll join us. And if you know people in that situation, or if you work with a lot of folks who are in that situation, please share it with them, because it's going to be of great, great value. We're not going to have all the answers, but we're going to have some ideas. We're going to share some frameworks. We're going to talk about some things, and we're going to really try to create a community of those folks who are dealing with it. So come join us and come ask your questions and share your ideas and your experiences at that time. It's going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to having you join us. So with that, I have my able assistant, Marissa. Say hello, Marissa.
Hello.
And Marissa is watching the LinkedIn Live. So if you're on LinkedIn and asking a question, Marissa will make sure I get that question. If you have a comment there, she'll make sure I get that comment. In order for me to read all that, I probably should put on my glasses. So I'm going to do that. And do you have anything yet, Marissa?
Not so far.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to start with the first question as planned. In fact, if you watched yesterday, I said this is where we were going to start today, because it was something that I had planned to do yesterday that I never got to. So here's the question we're going to open with today. How do you surface disagreement in a remote setting? Well, first of all, it's probably more likely that you might not know of the issues or of the disagreement when people are remote. It's certainly possible. So you're going to need to be more aware. And I'm not saying that you should be looking for discontent and disagreement, but you certainly want to be aware if it exists, right? So how do you surface disagreement in a remote setting? First thing is you've got to be having open conversations with your folks, checking in with them regularly, not just talking about the work, but about where their concerns are, what their issues are. Try to doing everything that you can to make it safe for them to share. So you've got to be on the lookout, not because you want to stir the pot and find disagreement. Let's hope we don't have any, but let's make sure that if it's there, we can do something with it, right? So we can work to surface it in our individual conversations. We can try to bring it up in a virtual meeting as well. So think about how sometimes in meetings, people don't want to say anything or don't want to talk, right? Well, that's even more true in a virtual meeting. More likely that people don't want to interact. The cameras will certainly help. There's a point at which the cameras probably don't help. But that is certainly one of the ways we want to try to get at that, is to surface it by just being out there, being available, being visible, and all that can be happening by you being intentional about reaching out to your folks, checking in, seeing where they're at, doing those sorts of things along the way. And you can still keep your ears open, even if you're not hearing everyone down the hall. You'll get more of a sense than you might realize. So I'm going to leave that for now. If you've got a follow-up, anybody you want to say more about that, please do. And okay. So that's some thoughts about surfacing disagreement. Again, we're not hoping for it. We don't want it, but if it shows up, we want to know that it's showing up so that we can start to deal with it. Okay. All right. So we got this question yesterday on the LinkedIn side near the end, I think. And so I'm going to share it with you now because Amos asked the question yesterday, and hopefully he'll come back in here and see this later. But he asked a good question, and it's one that I've been asked, and we've been asked a lot over the last couple of weeks. And Amos asked, there are high chances of overworking while working from home. How do we prevent this from happening? We have certainly seen this. And if you don't know our story, my team, including the lovely and talented Marissa, who you can only hear here, work remotely. We have been a largely remote team for a decade. There have normally been a couple of folks that are here some days or all days, but they're working from home now all the time too. So the first thing I would say is we know a little bit about this because we've been doing it for a while. We've been working with clients on it as well. And so Amos's point is a good one, that we could very well find ourselves, if we're working from home for the first time, taking the risk of overworking. Now, here's the thing. You've got your work with you always, right? And you've got this laptop, and it's right here, and it's staring at you. So what I want you to think about doing, number one, is not letting any more than possible the work to bleed into your life and your life to bleed into your work. A lot of times people get worried about, well, people's life is going to bleed into their work and they're going to do their laundry during the workday. And quite honestly, I don't care. I'm happy to have people do that. You're going to take a break anyway. Why not? But we're talking now about the other direction, right? Like, how do we stop working? Because it's always there. So a couple of things. Number one, make sure you're creating routines. So when you went to the office or the workplace, you had a routine, right? You did some things and then you went to work. And yeah, you maybe had some of your work here on this little device, but it's not the same, right? And so you went to work and then you started working and then you ended the day and you went home. And even if maybe you did some work later, there was a break and there was a clarity between the one and the other. And now perhaps you're doing your work on your dining room table. Perhaps you're in a one-bedroom apartment and you're doing your work in your bedroom. And so, man, it's always there. So work to build some routines as an individual worker and try to close the laptop, because physically closing it helps give you the clue that says, I chose to close it. And I'm not going to go back to it right now. Okay. And even if you say, I'm going to go back to it later in the evening and I'm working in a more flexible way, so I'm going to work later in the evening, just again, routines around when you're doing it and when you're not doing it to help you and to help the others in your household as well. Now, if you're a leader in this situation and you want to help your team members avoid this, or if you are already seeing them do it, you might say, well, I'm a leader. I want them working. That's awesome. But what we really want is high productivity, not lots of activity. What we want is results. What we want is accomplishment. So help people stay focused on what are the most important things that need to be done and let them know that some things can go to the next day. Listen, this wasn't true in the office and it's not true now. You're never, ever really going to have it all done. There's no such thing as the empty to-do list. And so if you're operating under this idea that if I just work a little longer, if I just keep working, I'll get rid of all the stuff on the to-do list, that's probably a fallacy. Now, I am not saying that we can't be focused and we can't work and we can't love our work and want to do more of it. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying make some clear thoughts in your own head about what that looks like, build some routines around it, and then have the discipline to stick with it. So if you'll do those things, that'd be great. I think that we've got some questions, some things coming in. You have a question for me, Marissa, it appears. So why don't you tell me what it is?
Yes, I do. Aaron Rollins asked, what are some good team building activities we can do with remote employees?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question. I'm going to hide this one so we're not talking about that. I'm going to be in 56 minutes. I'm going to be leading a team, and I'm going to be doing a little of that. There's a couple of things that and then there's some things that we've done on our team. So when we say team building, that means lots of things to different people. But what I would say that one of the things that we all need right now, especially if it's a newly remote team, is we want to keep people connected. And because of the situation and the pandemic and everything else, people need a little levity. And so I think getting your team together to do some of those things and making that a part of what we're doing is really important. So We have done that on our existing planned meetings on our team. We have had a group lunch where there was no work, only frivolity and food, I suppose. We all did it virtually. Some of us are in Pacific time zones, and so they had breakfast and many other people had lunch. But we did that. So one of the things you can do is, so I'll be very specific now. Aaron, right? Marissa, that's what you said?
Yes, Aaron.
So Aaron, I'll be real specific. Number one is get together with people, and you can still have a virtual cup of tea or coffee with the webcams on. You can get the whole group together to share a meal. People are talking about virtual happy hours. All depends on what your work culture is. That's certainly an option. But let's say that you're wanting to get the group together. A couple things that you can do. I'll tell you one of the things I'm going to do with this group in like I said, in less than an hour. I'm going to do a pulse check with them. And that pulse check looks like this. And maybe I could get really fancy. Let me see if I have those slides up. I have those slides up. Let me see if I can get it over here. Let me show you the pulse check that I'm going to show this group here in about an hour. I'm going to share my screen right now like this. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll be there. So I'm going to show them this slide. What color am I right now? And I'm just going to ask people to share. Just tell us your color. You don't have to justify it, and we're not going to try and fix it or convince you of something else. I don't want to make it unsafe. I don't want us to go into fix it mode. Just want people to have a chance to say, hey, here's how I'm feeling right now. And so what I'm going to literally do is I'm going to pick one person to go first, tell us your color, and ask them to pick the next person, and we'll go around the room and doing that very thing. So that's one of the things that I'm going to do. What does that do? You have to recognize, Aaron, and all the rest of you, that we're not all in the same place. And I did this exercise with the same group I'm going to do it with today. I did it with them last week, and they had a balance of these, right? And not everyone's in the same place. As a leader, you might be in a different place than everybody else. And as a leader, you may want to know where people are. Again, not to fix them, but to know that not everybody's in exactly the same place or in the same space. The other thing I'm going to do with them in a little bit is this. I'm going to ask each person later on in that meeting to go around and make one suggestion to the group. What's one resource that you found? What's one movie that you've watched? What's the bingeable show you've been watching? What's a book you've been reading, an activity you're doing, a game, something that will bring enjoyment or things to others. Now, I didn't want to pick just one thing. Some people don't binge TV. Some people don't read. So I picked a whole list of things as a way for people to share with each other and help each other in that particular situation. So I'm going to stop my share here, perhaps. And there we are. And then I'm going to go back to just me. And there's Marissa. It looks like you've got something else for me, Marissa. Nope, nothing else. Do you have anything else right now?
Nope, not right now.
All right. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook and you've got questions, you don't have to rely on Marissa. I can see them. So if you put in a comment, put in a question, say hello, tell me where you're from. I'd love to know. Feel free to do that. Those of you on LinkedIn can do the same thing. Where are you from? Marissa will report out in a bit. Okay, so there's a couple of questions down, including Aaron's. I'm going to ask the next question that I have here that came last week. And Romy asked, should we be meeting via webcams every day to keep morale up or just weekly? Well, it depends. Depends on a lot of things. Depends probably on a whole bunch of factors, including what does your team need right now? Does your team need that? Number one. Number two, how big is your team? If you got 50 people on your team, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. And there may be sub-teams of folks that you might want to do that with, right? It depends really on where the team is and what the team needs. So if you've never really met with your team before ever, going to meeting every day, probably not a good plan. If you had a huddle every day, I'd certainly be doing the same thing right now to keep some normalcy, and you had good reasons for doing it then. You may have more good reasons for doing it now. If you haven't done it, but you feel like you want to do some check-ins, you want to kind of check up with people and do those sorts of things, great. I don't know that I would jump all the way into the deep end of the pool at every day. I would probably come back at, hey, we're going to meet Monday and Wednesday and Friday this week and see how it goes, to see if that's helpful to us. I don't want us to meet. I want us to meet if it's going to help us. It's going to help us stay connected. It's going to help us keep focused on the work, whatever your reasons are. So, and if it's just to keep up morale, as the question is, then that's certainly something else that you could consider. But I would say it really depends on the culture of your team, the expectations of the team, the needs of your team. And I wouldn't make this decision on my own. I'd make this in conjunction with the team. What do you guys want? What do you need? And they may say, we don't want to do it. I'm not saying that you automatically don't do it because they say no. But what I am saying is that once you do it, they may find, oh, that was more valuable than I thought. Because remember, a lot of people think meeting and they think, oh, I don't want to be in another meeting. Why would I raise my hand for another meeting? So you might have to do it yourself and just start. Then you may find, what am I getting out of this? What's the value of this? And ask the group about that as well. So there's another couple of thoughts on that. All right. So let's see what else we have. We have another question here. And it came from Kathleen. This was actually on a webinar that took place late last week. A webinar series that has one more session in it. And Marissa, you want to put that in there, remote work, kevinikenberry.com/remote work. There it is. You can all see it on the screen. If you go there, there's one more of these mini webinars that we're doing. I'm doing it tomorrow, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Happy to have you join me. But this question was asked by Kathleen on one of those last week. And she said, where do you draw the line in connecting on a personal level and keeping it professional? So we spend a lot of time talking about when we're leading teams and when we're working remotely, that we need to make sure that there's a level of connection, because connection and relationship and trust, communication can all take a hit when we're working remotely. And we want to do everything we can to have them not take a hit, right? So where do you draw the line? Well, I think the first thing is that without knowing the person who's asking the question, it's a little bit hard for me to answer, because some people have the need themselves to have a lot of connection. And some team members have the need to have a lot of connection, and others have need for less of it. Here's what I would start with. If you and your team members only ever talk about the work and the weather, it's probably not enough. If you're spending an hour a day learning everything about what happened in their family the night before that was the routine and mundane, that's probably too much. The right answer is finding what works with the other person so that there feels like a level of connection and trust and likability. That's what we're after. So we want to, and some of us feel the need to keep it more professional and have a clearer boundary line than others, both us as leaders and those as team members. So we want to figure out what that looks like for our folks. And we want to, we just want to make sure that we're doing what our team members need without it becoming totally uncomfortable for us. You might have to push your personal boundary a little bit, and that's okay. There's probably some value in that. I think what I would leave us with here is this is a super important question. And while you can certainly go too far, too many people don't go far enough. So finding the line will depend a lot on you as a leader and your style and the needs of your team, which means that you're going to have to find this line yourself. But don't stop at just the work and the weather. How about that? Okay. I've got another question from Marissa. Well, from LinkedIn. So what do you got, Marissa?
First, I want to say that Aaron said that you gave some great suggestions and he thanked you for those. And then the question I have is from Carol, who asks, what technology platform or platforms have you found to be most effective for group meetings?
Carol, you are unbelievably prescient. Carol understands exactly what's going to happen here, because look at the last question that I had here. A lot of people have asked us about communication tools, picking them and using them and all that sort of stuff. So, Carol, you're saying, what are the best ones? That's basically what she's saying, right, Marissa?
Yes. Yes.
I'm a consultant, so the answer has to be it depends, right? Actually, let me be a little more serious than that. Here's the thing. Pretty much all of you that are with me now and that are working remotely now have got a variety of tools, right? You got email. You probably have a text process. You likely have a web platform that allows you to use your webcams, and you have Probably some sort of instant messaging tool. You may have shared files. You may have a bunch of other things, right? Here's the short answer. We need to use the tool that will work best for that particular communication situation, right? Most of us use the tool we like the best, or use the tool we're most comfortable with. And in many organizations, what happens when they first go remote, like now, is the number of emails goes up. Well, I have no problem with email. We should use email. It's a useful tool. It's a very valuable tool for asynchronous communication. You can send a note now. I can read it in an hour, and that's really great. It's tremendously powerful. It's asynchronous. Email, however, is not a good place to have a conversation. And you know that, right? You've been on the email thread, and 3 messages in, it's all going south. And so right tool, right communication goal is the first thing I would say. So there's no one perfect tool. And the right answer is to have enough tools so that you can do the best job you can to reach the goals that you have. Now, this does not mean that you need to have every tool under the planet. This does not mean that, well, some people are using this communication. Some people are using this instant messenger. Some are using this instant messenger. Some are using the messaging tool inside of our web platform, and some are using this other one. And so we got to try and stop that as much as we can. Now, if it's already happening in your organization, you at least have to try to get clarity around when we're using which ones, or in which projects we're using which ones. At an absolute minimum, if this project is already using this tool, make sure that people know that that's where they need to be looking for that project. You may not be able to coalesce them all, but what we can do, if you don't have that complication, is make sure everyone is clear about when we use which tool. So we use an instant messaging tool called Slack. Some of you on here probably do as well, which is fine. We like it. We use it for lots of things. Okay. When we first started using it, we had some people that were all excited about it. And we had some people that said, why do we need this? We already have email. And so what we needed to do, and what we did, was as an entire group, set some parameters, set some expectations, set some criteria about when we use which tool. Now, I'm not sure that at this point I could pull that list of criteria up, but it existed. At this point, we have a pretty stable team. And when we bring new people on, we help them understand what those criteria are. But fundamentally, we generally know when we're going to use an email, when we're going to use Slack. And what we've tried to figure out is which situations, which communication goals are these tools best at, and use those in those situations. Now, it doesn't always go perfect, but we've been at it a while, and we've found, I think, a pretty good rhythm about when we use instant messenger and when we use email. But then when do we use text? Well, we're also pretty clear on that. We have some people that use that more than others. There was a message that came on Slack last night from one of our team members that said, hey, right now, Slack's not working for me in terms of it notifying me if there's a message. So if you need to get a hold of me right now, if I haven't responded on Slack, send me a text. It's a perfect example of us having clarity about when we can do this, that, or the next thing. Someone on the team might say, hey, I'm going to be, and put in one of our channels that's available to everybody, hey, I'm going to be going for a walk for the next 30 minutes. If you really need me, you can get me on my phone. Otherwise, I'll be back in a half an hour. So all of these are ways that we're using different tools to meet the needs of our team members at the time. I think the short answer here is be clear about what your communication goal is and think through what the right tool is for that time. And if you've been with me at all over the last few weeks, as we've been doing these lives, you've heard me talk about the power of the webcam, and we ought to be using it as much as we can. We can overuse it. Marissa, that's coming out today, right? The overusing the webcam, is that today?
I believe it has.
So if you were to go, why don't you put that in there, blog.kevinikenberry.com, or if you're on YouTube, you can probably find it on our channel there soon today, where I talked about, can you overuse your webcam? Well, you can. I talked about that a little bit. You can go find it there, and I'll put it in here as well. Just go to blog. now you all are going to see me type and do this all at once. And I guarantee you that Marissa is going, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. If you just go to that link, there it is. It showed up everybody except LinkedIn, where Marissa's taking care of it. You'll find it. And if it's not there now, it'll be there very soon, where we're going to talk about that. Okay. And there it is. She's put the full link in there, and I can even copy that. Look at this. And I can go put the full link to you all in the other channels. There you go. All right. Well, everybody, that's the stuff that I had for today. Marissa, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Well, listen, everybody, it was a pleasure to have you here today. I have a stockpile of questions. So I'm going to be back tomorrow at noon Eastern, or just a little bit before, to do this again. So whatever channel you're seeing me on now, you can see me then. If you're watching this later, you can come on that time, Wednesday, 4:15 at a little before noon Eastern time. And you can join us, and we're going to answer some more questions that we've gotten and answer any of yours as well. Hope you'll come back. Hope you'll listen again. Most of all, I hope you find this valuable. And as always, be well, be safe, be remarkable. Thanks, everybody.